The air was thick with the scent of leather, rosemary, and something faintly metallic like ambition soaked into the cobblestones. Emma Sinclair, a 32-year-old fashion designer from New York City, stood frozen in the heart of Florence, her sneakers sinking slightly into the muddy street. One moment, she'd been sketching in her Soho loft, surrounded by mood boards of silk swatches and avant-garde gowns. The next, a blinding flash from her vintage sewing machine and eccentric flea market find had hurled her through a kaleidoscope of light and sound. Now, here she was, blinking under the golden haze of a 1500s Italian sun, her leather jacket and ripped jeans drawing stares from passers-by in doublets and hose. Florence buzzed like a living tapestry. Merchants hawked bolts of wool and velvet from wooden stalls, their voices tangling with the clatter of cartwheels and the distant chime of cathedral bells. Women in stiff, brocaded gowns glided past, their corsets cinching waists to an almost comical degree, while men strutted in puffed sleeves that looked like they'd been stuffed with dreams of grandeur. Emma's lips twitched. These outfits are giving curtains at a haunted mansion vibes, she thought, stifling a laugh. Her trained eye, honed by years of runway shows and Vogue critiques, saw potential in the chaos but also a dire need for her touch. The Renaissance was screaming for a glow-up, and Emma Sinclair was the woman to deliver it. She adjusted her backpack, heavy with sketch pads and a few precious pens, and took a step forward. A man in a feathered cap nearly collided with her, muttering something in rapid Italian. "Scusi, signora," he barked, eyeing her jeans like they were woven from witchcraft. Emma flashed a grin, her Brooklyn charm undeterred. "No worries, buddy, just passing through, or, time traveling." He scurried off, crossing himself, and Emma's grin faded. "Okay, Emma, focus. You're in Florence. 1,500. No phone, no Wi-Fi, no Uber. What's the plan?" Her first instinct was to blend in. Her outfit was a neon sign screaming "outsider," and the last thing she needed was a mob accusing her of heresy. She slipped into an alley where the air cooled and the noise dulled, and crouched behind a stack of barrels. From her backpack, she pulled a Scarfa gauzy, emerald green piece she'd designed for last spring's collection and draped it over her hair like a makeshift hood. It wasn't perfect, but it softened her edges, making her look less like a punk rock time traveler and more like, well, a slightly eccentric local. As she emerged, her eyes caught a flash of color, a noblewoman gliding toward a palazzo, her gown a cascade of burgundy velvet embroidered with gold thread. The dress was a masterpiece of craftsmanship, but it weighed her down like a suit of armor. Emma's fingers itched. She could see it already, a lighter silhouette, a daring neckline, a fabric that moved like water. These people don't know what they're missing, she thought, her heart racing with the thrill of creation. She wasn't just a designer anymore. She was a revolutionary, dropped into the epicenter of art and power, with a chance to rewrite fashion history. Her reverie shattered when a hand clamped onto her arm. "You? What are you doing lurking like a thief?" The voice was sharp, accented, and belonged to a woman with a face like a Renaissance, painting high cheekbones, dark eyes, and lips pursed in suspicion. She wore a gown of sapphire silk, its sleeves slashed to reveal glimpses of cream linen beneath. A gold chain glittered at her throat, marking her as someone important. Emma's pulse spiked, but she forced a smile, channeling every ounce of her New York hustle. "Lurking? Oh, honey, I'm just..." Admiring the architecture, Emma gestured vaguely at the stone walls, her voice dripping with charm. Name's Emma. I'm, new in town. The woman's eyes narrowed, scanning Emma's scarf and jeans. You dress like a barbarian. And that accent, where are you from? Not Milan, surely. Her tone was a mix of curiosity and disdain, but Emma sensed an opening. This woman wasn't just a noble. She was a trendsetter, the kind who could make or break a designer's career. I'm from far away. Let's say I'm a traveler with a knack for making beautiful things. Emma leaned closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. And between you and me, I could make you a gown that'd have every noble in Florence begging for your tailor's name. The woman raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. Bold words for a stranger. I am Lady Isabella de Medici, and I do not suffer fools. Prove your worth, or I'll have you thrown into the street. Emma's stomach flipped, but her grin widened. A challenge? She lived for this. Give me a day, Lady Isabella, and I'll sketch you something that'll make your current dress look like a potato sack. Deal? Isabella's lips twitched, almost a smile. One day, meet me at my palazzo at dusk. If you fail, I'll ensure you regret stepping into Florence. She turned, her skirts swishing, and vanished into the crowd. Emma exhaled, her heart pounding. She had no fabric, no tools, no clue how to navigate this city, but she had her vision and her nerve. The Renaissance was about to meet Emma Sinclair, and she was ready to set it on fire. Her first stop was the market, a labyrinth of stalls bursting with color and chaos. She wove through the crowd, dodging a butcher, waving a cleaver, and a boy juggling apples. At a textile stall, she paused, her breath catching. Bolts of silk shimmered in jewel tones, ruby, sapphire, emerald, while linens and wools piled high in earthy hues. The merchant, a wiry man with a beard like a paintbrush, eyed her curiously. You seek cloth, signora, for a gown? Something special, Emma said, running her fingers over a bolt of cream silk, so fine it felt like a whisper. Light, flowy, but strong, and maybe some thread gold, if you've got it. The merchant's eyes gleamed. You have coin? Emma froze. Coin? She had a Metro card and a half-eaten protein bar. Thinking fast, she pulled a silver bangle from her wrist, a cheap Etsy find, but it gleamed like treasure. Trade? He inspected it, then nodded. For the silk and thread, but be quick, others watch you. His gaze flicked to a pair of men in dark cloaks lingering nearby, their faces shadowed. Emma's skin prickled, but she forced a nod, grabbing her supplies and hurrying off. Back in the alley, she knelt beside a crate and opened her sketch pad. Her pen flew, outlining a gown that was pure Emma Sinclair, a fitted bodice that hugged the curves, a plunging neckline that teased without revealing, and a skirt that cascaded like a waterfall, light enough to dance in. It was bold, modern, yet rooted in the elegance of the era love letter to Florence with a New York edge. As she worked, the city's pulse seemed to sync with her own, urging her on, but danger was already circling. The men in cloaks had followed her, their footsteps soft but deliberate. One whispered to the other, his voice low and urgent. She's no ordinary woman. That scarf, those tools mark my words. She's a witch. Emma didn't hear them, but she felt the weight of their stares. She tucked her sketchpad away, her mind racing. She had a day to win over Isabella, but Florence was a city of secrets, and she was a stranger in its heart. As the sun dipped low, casting golden shadows across the Arno River, Emma stepped back into the crowd, her resolve burning brighter than ever. She was here to change the Gamenon stitch at a time. And somewhere, in the shadows of the city, a painter watched her, his brush paused over a canvas. He knew something about time, about secrets that could unravel everything. But for now, Emma was unaware, her eyes fixed on the palazzo ahead, where Destinand, a daring gown awaited. The moon hung low over Florence, bathing the city in a silver glow that made the Arno River shimmer like liquid glass. Emma Sinclair stood outside Lady Isabella de' Medici's palazzo, her sketchpad clutched to her chest, her heart hammering with a cocktail of nerves and exhilaration. The gown she'd sketched, a daring fusion of Renaissance opulence and New York chic, was her ticket to survival in this strange, intoxicating world. But as she adjusted her makeshift scarf and smoothed her jeans, the weight of her gamble settled in. She had one shot to impress Isabella, a woman whose sharp eyes could crown her or condemn her. And somewhere in the shadows, whispers of witch were already coiling around her name. The palazzo's doors swung open, and a servant in a crimson doublet ushered her inside. The interior was a fever dream of wealth. Frescoed ceilings danced with cherubs, marble floors gleamed under torchlight, and tapestries woven with gold thread told stories of gods and conquests. Emma's sneakers squeaked faintly, drawing a glare from the servant. She flashed a grin. "Don't worry, I'll keep the mud to a minimum." He huffed and led her to a chamber where Isabella waited, perched on a velvet chair like a queen surveying her court. "You're late," Isabella said, her voice cool but her eyes alight with curiosity. She wore a gown of emerald silk tonight, its bodice studded with pearls that caught the firelight. "I trust you've brought something worth my time, Emma. Of wherever you claim to be from." Emma's pulse quickened, but she matched Isabella's coolness with a spark of Brooklyn bravado. "Oh, I've got something that'll make every noble woman in Florence jealous, Lady Isabella. Ready to see the future of fashion?" She opened her sketchpad, revealing the gown, a fitted bodice that hugged the waist, a neckline that dipped just enough to tease, and a skirt of flowing silk that seemed to ripple even on paper. Gold thread accented the seams, giving it a glow that screamed royalty, but moved like a whisper. Isabella leaned forward, her fingers tracing the sketch. "This is bold, almost scandalous. The neckline too low, the skirt too light." Yet, her lips curved into a reluctant smile. "It intrigues me. Could you make it real?" Emma's heart leapt. "With the right hands and a little time, I can make it sing. But I'll need a tailor, someone who can keep up with me." Isabella's smile sharpened. "I know just the man. But be warned, Emahe's as stubborn as he is skilled. And if you fail, my patience will not save you." She clapped her hands, and the servant returned, leading Emma through winding corridors to a workshop tucked in the palazzo's heart. The tailor, introduced as Master Lorenzo, was a wiry Florentine with a beard like a storm cloud and eyes that missed nothing. His workshop was a chaos of beauty. Bolts of silk and velvet spilled across tables, needles glinted in candlelight, and half-finished garments hung like ghosts. Lorenzo looked Emma up and down, his gaze lingering on her jeans. "You are the stranger Isabella speaks of? You dress like a sailor lost at sea." Emma laughed, unfazed. "And you dress like you're auditioning for a Shakespeare play, but let's make magic together, yeah?" She spread her sketch on the table, explaining her vision. A gown that married Florence's grandeur with her own modern flair. Lorenzo's scowl softened as she spoke, his fingers brushing the paper with something like reverence. "It is possible," he admitted grudgingly, "but the silk must be cut with precision, and the gold thread is costly. Isabella will not forgive errors." "Then we won't make any," Emma said, rolling up her sleeves. "Let's get to work." The next 2 days were a blur of creation. Emma and Lorenzo worked side by side, their banter a mix of her New York wit and his Florentine grumbling. She taught him to cut fabric at daring angles, creating a silhouette that flowed like water. He showed her how to stitch gold thread so it caught the light like stars. The workshop became their world, filled with the rustle of silk, the snap of scissors, and the occasional curse when a needle pricked flesh. Emma's hands, calloused from years of sewing, moved with a rhythm that felt like home, even in this alien time. But Florence was not a city to let beauty bloom unchecked. Whispers followed Emma like shadows. Servants gossiped about her strange Tulsa ballpoint pen, a pair of modern scissors she'd tucked in her backpack, and her unnatural confidence. The men in dark cloaks from the market appeared again, lingering outside the palazzo, their eyes cold and calculating. One evening, as Emma stepped out for air, she overheard them in an alley. "She speaks of things not yet known," one hissed. "Her designs, they defy God's order. The priests will hear of this." Emma's blood ran cold, but she forced herself to keep walking, her scarf pulled tight. She couldn't afford fear not when the gown was nearly finished, not when Isabella's approval could shield her. Back in the workshop, she poured her nerves into the final stitches, her fingers trembling but sure. The gown was a revelation. When they draped it on a wooden mannequin, even Lorenzo gasped. The cream silk cascaded like a dream, the gold thread winking with every movement. The bodice was a sculpture, accentuating the curves without crushing them, and the neckline was a Daria promise of elegance and rebellion. Emma stepped back, her chest tight with pride. "This," she whispered, "is going to change everything." But trouble was brewing faster than she knew. At dawn, a rival appeared, Signora Vittoria, a noblewoman with a viper's smile and a reputation for crushing upstarts. She swept into the workshop unannounced, her gown a fortress of black velvet and silver embroidery. "So, you are Isabella's pet," Vittoria purred, circling the mannequin. "This rag is what you offer?" "It's fit for a courtesan, not a lady." Emma's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice sweet. "Funny, Signora. I'd say your dress is fit for a funeral. Want me to sketch you something with a little life?" Lorenzo coughed, hiding a laugh, but Vittoria's eyes flashed with venom. "You'll regret that tongue," she said, her voice low. "Isabella may indulge you, but the court will not. And the church?" She let the word hang, heavy with threat, before gliding out. Emma's hands shook as she returned to work, but Lorenzo's gruff voice steadied her. "Ignore her. She's jealous. But be careful, ragazza. Vittoria has the ear of powerful men." That night, the tension snapped. Emma and Lorenzo were sewing the final hem when the workshop door burst open. 3 men stormed in in the dark cloaks she'd seen before. The third, a priest with a face like carved stone. "Emma Sinclair," the priest intoned, his voice echoing in the small room. "You are accused of witchcraft. Your unnatural garments and tools betray you. Come with us." Emma's heart stopped. Witchcraft? In her time, it was a Halloween costume. Here, it was a death sentence. She glanced at Lorenzo, whose face was pale but set. "Run," he whispered. stepping between her and the men. "The back door, go!" She didn't hesitate. Grabbing her sketchpad and the gown, she bolted through a narrow door into a courtyard, her sneakers pounding against stone. The men shouted, their boots thundering behind her. She ducked into an alley, the gown bundled in her arms, its silk brushing her skin like a lover's touch. The city was a maze, but she ran blindly, her breath ragged, her mind racing. I didn't come this far to burn at the stake. Her salvation came in the form of an unlikely ally. As she rounded a corner, she collided with a young man, with paint-splattered hands and eyes like a storm. "This way," he hissed, pulling her into a hidden doorway. The men's shouts faded as he led her through a warren of passages to a small studio, its walls lined with canvases. A single candle burned, casting shadows over a half-finished portrait of her. Emma's breath caught. The painting showed her in the gown, her face alight with defiance. "Who are you?" she demanded, clutching the gown tighter. "Tommaso," he said, his voice low and urgent. "A painter, and someone who knows you don't belong here. I've seen things, visions of time unraveling. You're part of it." Emma's head spun. Visions? Time? She wanted to demand answers, but footsteps echoed outside. Tommaso pressed a key into her hand. "There's a safe house by the river. Hide there. Finish the gown. Isabella will protect you if you succeed." She nodded, too stunned to argue, and slipped out into the night. The safe house was a crumbling loft above a baker's shop, its windows overlooking the Arno. Alone, Emma spread the gown across a table, her hands steadying as she stitched the final touches. The silk seemed to hum under her fingers, as if it knew its destiny. Outside, Florence slept, but danger was closing in. Vittoria's spies were searching, and the priest's accusations were spreading like wildfire. At dawn, Emma stood before a cracked mirror, the gown draped over her own body for a final test. It fit like a second skin, its silk caressing her curves, its gold thread catching the light like a halo. She looked like a goddess, a rebel, a woman who could conquer a city or burn it down. A knock at the door made her jump, but it was only a messenger from Isabella, summoning her to the palazzo. As Emma stepped into the street, the gown hidden under a cloak, she felt the weight of Florence's eyes. The church, the nobles, the painter, they all wanted something from her. But she was Emma Sinclair, a designer who'd clawed her way through New York's cutthroat fashion world. She'd face Isabella, silence Vittoria, and prove she belonged not just in Florence, but in history. The palazzo loomed ahead, its torches blazing. Inside, Isabella waited, her expression unreadable, and somewhere, Tommaso's words echoed, "You're part of it." Emma's fingers tightened on her sketchpad. Whatever it was, she was ready to unravel eye-tone stitch at a time. The air in Florence crackled with anticipation, as if the city itself knew a storm was brewing. Emma Sinclair stood in the shadowed courtyard of Lady Isabella de' Medici's palazzo, her breath shallow, her fingers clutching the key Tommaso had given her. The cream silk gown, her masterpiece, was hidden beneath a coarse cloak, its gold-threaded seams a secret waiting to ignite. 3 days, that's all she had, to create a wedding dress for the Duke's royal ceremony, a commission that could crown her as Florence's newest star or cast her into a dungeon. The ultimatum had come at dawn, delivered by a stone-faced herald. Succeed, and you'll dine with kings. Fail, and you'll rot in chains. Emma's heart pounded, but her New York grit burned brighter than her fear. She'd faced cutthroat critics at Fashion Week, survived rent hikes in Soho, and now she'd outrun accusations of witchcraft in a city that loved to burn its rebels. This was her runway, and she was ready to slay. The Palazzo's great hall was a cathedral of power when she entered, its walls draped in crimson tapestries, its chandeliers dripping with candles that cast a golden haze. Nobles in velvet and brocade whispered behind jeweled fans, their eyes darting to Emma as she approached Isabella. The lady stood beside a towering figure, the Duke of Florence, Alessandro de' Medici, his dark eyes sharp as a blade, his doublet glittering with rubies. His bride-to-be, Lady Beatrice, hovered nearby, her delicate frame swamped by a gown that looked like it was wearing her. "You are the stranger who claims to rival our tailors?" Alessandro's voice was smooth, but it carried the weight of a guillotine. "Isabella speaks highly of you, but I am not so easily swayed. The wedding is in 3 days. My bride must outshine the stars, or you'll find Florence less welcoming than you hoped." Emma met his gaze, her chin lifting. "Your Grace, I don't just make dresses, I make legends. Give me a workshop, and I'll give you a bride who'll have every court in Europe begging for my name." A murmur rippled through the crowd, half admiration, half scandal. Isabella's lips twitched, but Signora Vittoria, lurking like a vulture in black satin, stepped forward. "Bold words for a woman who skulks in alleys," she purred. "I too will present a gown. Let the court decide who is worthy." Emma's stomach twisted. Vittoria wasn't just a rival, she was a predator, her influence woven into the church and the nobility. But Emma flashed a smile, all Brooklyn swagger. "Bring it on, Signora. My silk will bury your velvet." The Duke's laugh was a low rumble. "A contest then. 3 days. Impress me, or neither of you will enjoy my favor." He waved a hand, dismissing them, and Emma felt the weight of 1,000 eyes as she left the hall. Isabella pulled her aside in a corridor, her voice low. "Vittoria will sabotage you. She's already whispering to the priests, calling your work devilry. You need more than a gown, you need allies." Emma nodded, her mind racing. "I've got Lorenzo, and maybe Tommaso, but materials? I'm running low on silk, and Vittoria's probably hoarding the best." Isabella's eyes gleamed. "There's a merchant by the Ponte Vecchio, Giovanni. Tell him I sent you, but move quickly. Time is not your friend." Emma didn't waste a second. She slipped into the city, her cloak hiding the gown's sketchpad, as she navigated the bustling streets. The Ponte Vecchio was a riot of color, its shops spilling over with jewels and fabrics. Giovanni, a grizzled man with a scar across his cheek, greeted her with a wary nod. "Isabella's name opens doors," he said, leading her to a back room. There, she found treasures. Bolts of sapphire silk, threads of silver and gold, and pearls that glowed like moonlight. But as she bartered trading another bangle from her backpack, she caught a glimpse of Vittoria's men outside, their cloaks unmistakable. "They're watching you," Giovanni muttered, handing her a bundle. "Take the river path back. It's safer." Emma's skin prickled, but she thanked him and hurried out, the materials heavy in her arms. The river path was quiet, the Arno's murmur her only companion, until footsteps crunched behind her. She spun, heart leaping, to see Tommaso, his painter's smock streaked with ochre. "You're hard to keep up with," he said, his stormy eyes scanning the shadows. "Vittoria's men are close. Let me help." "Why?" Emma demanded, her voice sharp. "You talk about time and visions, but I don't even know you." Tommaso's smile was cryptic. "Let's just say I've painted things that haven't happened yet. You're in one of them. Now move." She followed him through a maze of alleys to the safe house by the river, her pulse racing. Inside, she spread the materials across a table, the sapphire silk shimmering like a promise. But time was slipping away, and the gown was only half formed. Lorenzo arrived at dusk, his face grim. Vittoria's spreading lies. The priests are circling, and the market's out of silk, she's bought it all. Emma's jaw clenched. Then we work with what we've got. This gown isn't just Fabrice, it's a statement. She sketched furiously, adapting her design. The sapphire silk would form a bodice that sculpted the body, with a skirt that flared like wings, accented by pearls and silver thread. It was bolder than her first gown, a dare to Florence's rigid traditions. The next 2 days were a crucible. Emma and Lorenzo sewed through the night, their hands blistered, their eyes burning. Tommaso brought food and warnings, slipping in and out like a ghost. The safe house became a cocoon of creation, the gown taking shape under candlelight. Its bodice hugged the mannequin like a lover, the pearls glinting with defiance. But Vittoria's sabotage struck at the worst moment. On the second night, a pounding at the door woke Emma. She opened it to find the sapphire silk slashed, pearls scattered across the floor. A note pinned to the fabric read, "Witches don't wear crowns." Emma's scream was silent, her knees buckling. Lorenzo cursed, but Tommaso knelt beside her, his voice steady. "You're stronger than this. Use what's left. Make it hers." Tears stung her eyes, but Emma nodded. She was Emma Sinclair, who'd rebuilt her career after a plagiarized collection nearly broke her. She wouldn't break now. They salvaged what they could, recutting the silk to create a daring asymmetrical skirt, weaving the remaining pearls into a neckline that screamed royalty. It was imperfect, raw, but it was a live gown that told a story of survival. The final blow came hours before the deadline. The priest from the workshop raid appeared at the safe house, flanked by guards. "Emma Sinclair, your blasphemy ends tonight," he thundered. "Your gown profanes the sacred union of marriage." Emma stood tall, the gown draped over the mannequin behind her. "Blasphemy? This gown is art. Judge it tomorrow, Father, when it walks into the cathedral. Unless you're afraid it'll outshine your sermons." The priest's face darkened, but Tommaso stepped forward, his voice calm. "She's under Isabella's protection. Harm her, and you answer to the Medici." The guards hesitated, and the priest retreated, spitting curses. Emma exhaled, her legs trembling, but there was no time to rest. The wedding was at dawn. As the first light broke over Florence, Emma carried the gown to the cathedral, her cloak hiding its glory. The streets were alive with festival banners, the air thick with jasmine and anticipation. Inside, the cathedral was a sea of nobles, their jewels winking under stained glass light. Vittoria stood near the altar, her gown a fortress of white velvet and gold, embroidery stunning, but heavy, like a monument to tradition. Emma found Lady Beatrice in a side chamber, her face pale with nerves. I don't want to look like a statue," Beatrice whispered. Emma smiled, her voice soft. "You won't. You'll look like a queen." When Beatrice stepped into the gown, the room fell silent. The sapphire silk clung to her curves, the asymmetrical skirt flowing like a river, the pearls catching the light like stars. It was sensual, defiant, a middle finger to convention. Beatrice's eyes sparkled, her shoulders straightening. "I feel alive," she said. The cathedral doors opened, and Beatrice walked down the aisle, every eye on her. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by whispers of awe. Alessandro's stern face softened, his eyes locked on his bride. Vittoria's smile froze, her knuckles white. Emma stood in the shadows, her heart soaring. She'd done it. She'd turned sabotage and suspicion into triumph. But the victory was short-lived. As the ceremony ended, the priest approached Alessandro, his voice loud enough to carry. "This woman's gown is a sin. She mocks our traditions with her devil's craft." The crowd hushed, and Emma's blood ran cold. Alessandro raised a hand, silencing the priest. "Enough. This gown has made my bride a vision. Florence will speak of this day for centuries." Emma Sinclair stepped forward. Emma's legs wobbled, but she walked into the light, her cloak falling away to reveal her jeans and scarf, a defiant blend of past and future. Alessandro's gaze was unreadable. "You have my favor," he said. "But Florence is a city of wolves. Tread carefully." Vittoria stormed out, her gown trailing like a defeated flag. The priest glared, but the crowd's applause drowned his protests. Emma exhaled, her body trembling with relief. She'd won for now. But as she slipped back into the shadows, Tommaso's voice whispered in her ear, "The painter's secret waits. Find me tonight." Emma's pulse quickened. The gown had saved her, but Florence was far from done with her. The cathedral bells rang, and she felt the city's heartbeat sync with her own. Whatever came next, she was ready. The cathedral bells of Florence tolled like a heartbeat, their echoes weaving through the twilight as Emma Sinclair slipped through the city's labyrinthine streets. Her sapphire silk gown, the one that had crowned Lady Beatrice as the queen of the royal wedding, was now a whispered legend among the nobles, its daring neckline and flowing skirt the talk of every palazzo. Yet, Emma's triumph was a fragile thread, stretched taut by the wolves Alessandro had warned her about: Vittoria's venomous ambition, the church's righteous fury, and the enigmatic painter Tommaso, whose cryptic words still burned in her mind. The painter's secret waits. Tonight, she would find him, unravel his mystery, and decide her fate in this intoxicating, treacherous Renaissance world. Emma's cloak billowed as she moved, her sneakers silent on the cobblestones, her sketchpad tucked against her chest like a shield. The Arno River glimmered to her left, its surface catching the last embers of sunset, while the city pulsed with festival revelry strumming, laughter spilling from taverns, and masked dancers swirling in the piazzas. Her victory in the cathedral had bought her the Duke's favor, but it had also painted a target on her back. She could feel it, eyes in the shadows, whispers trailing her like smoke. Her destination was Tommaso's studio, hidden in a warren of alleys near the Santa Croce. The key he'd given her weighed heavy in her pocket, a promise and a threat. As she turned a corner, a figure emerged from the gloom: Lady Isabella de' Medici, her emerald gown shimmering under a velvet cape, her eyes sharp as a falcon's. "You move like a thief, Emma," Isabella said, her voice low and teasing. "Or a woman with secrets." Emma's lips curved, her Brooklyn charm undimmed. "Takes one to know one, Lady Isabella. I'm just tying up loose ends. Care to join me?" Isabella's laugh was a velvet purr. "Tempting, but I have my own games to play. The court is alight with your name, but Vittoria is weaving a noose. She's with the priests now, claiming your gown bewitched the Duke, and there's talk of a painter who knows too much." Her gaze lingered, heavy with meaning. "Find your answers quickly, or Florence will devour you." Emma's pulse quickened, but she nodded. "Thanks for the heads up. If I survive, I owe you a dress that'll make the Pope jealous." Isabella's smile was a blade. "I'll hold you to that." She vanished into the crowd, her cape a whisper of shadow, leaving Emma alone with the city's heartbeat. The studio was a crumbling stone building, its door unmarked, save for a faint smear of ochre paint. Emma's key turned with a click, and she stepped inside, her breath catching. The air was thick with turpentine and wax, the walls a chaotic gallery of canvas portraits of nobles, mythical beasts, and, chillingly, her. One painting showed her in the sapphire gown, her eyes fierce, a golden thread spiraling around her like a halo. Another depicted her running through a void, stars exploding behind her. "What the hell are you, Tommaso?" she thought, her skin prickling. A rustle behind her made her spin, her hand clutching the key like a weapon. Tommaso stood in the doorway, his painter's smock clinging to his lean frame, his stormy eyes catching the candlelight. His dark hair fell in waves, and a smudge of crimson paint streaked his cheek, giving him a reckless, almost dangerous allure. "You came," he said, his voice low, resonant. "I wasn't sure you would. You didn't give me much choice," Emma snapped, her heart racing. "Paintings of me? Talk of time unraveling? Spill it, Tommaso, or I'm out." He stepped closer, his presence electric, the air between them charged. "You're not of this time, Emma. I see it flashes of worlds beyond this one. New York, you called it. Skyscrapers, machines, a life that hasn't happened yet. I paint what I see, and you're at the center." He gestured to a canvas, half-covered, showing a golden thread weaving through a fractured sky. "This is the secret. Time is a tapestry, and you're a loose stitch. Someone or something pulled you here." Emma's mouth went dry. Her sewing machine, that flea market relic, flashed in her mind its strange hum, the blinding light. "You're saying I'm... what? A glitch? And you're some kind of time prophet?" Tommaso's smile was wry. "Not a prophet, a witness. But there's more. Someone else knows you're here. They want to control, the thread control you." Before she could demand more, the door crashed open. Vittoria stormed in, her black satin gown gleaming like armor, flanked by 2 priests and a guard in the Duke's livery. Her lips curled in a venomous smile. "Caught at last, witch. Consorting with a heretic painter? Your sins pile high." Emma's blood ran cold, but her defiance flared. "Sins? My only crime is making you look outdated, Vittoria. That gown's screaming 1,490. Vittoria's eyes flashed, but the lead priest, his face a mask of zeal, stepped forward. "Your garments defy God's order. Your tools, your pen, your scissors not of this world. And now, we find you with this blasphemer, plotting against Florence." He gestured to Tommaso, who stood calm, his hand resting on a dagger at his belt. Emma's mind raced. The priests, Vittoria, the guard, they had her cornered. But she was Emma Sinclair, who'd talked her way out of a lease eviction and a runway disaster. She stepped forward, her voice honeyed but sharp. "You want to talk blasphemy? Look at Vittoria's gown, heavy, stiff, crushing the soul. My designs lift people up. They're art, not sin. And if you're so sure I'm a witch, let the Duke decide. He loved my work this morning." The guard hesitated, his loyalty to Alessandro wavering. Vittoria's smile faltered, but she pressed on. "The Duke is swayed by beauty, not truth. Seize her." The guard lunged, but Tommaso was faster. He shoved a canvas at the guard, paint smearing across his face, and grabbed Emma's hand. "Run," he hissed, pulling her toward a hidden panel in the wall. The priests shouted, Vittoria's voice rising in a shriek. But Emma and Tommaso slipped through the panel into a narrow passage, their footsteps echoing in the dark. The passage twisted beneath the city, damp and cold, but Tommaso's grip was warm, his urgency driving her forward. "There's a boat by the Arno," he panted. "It'll take you to a safe place outside Florence, but you need to decide, stay and fight, or leave and find the thread's source." Emma's mind spun. Leave? After she'd conquered the cathedral, won the Duke's favor? But Vittoria's reach was long, and the church's fire was relentless. And Tommaso's paintings, those visions of time, hinted at a truth she couldn't ignore. "What's the source?" she demanded, her voice sharp as they emerged by the river, a small boat bobbing in the moonlight. Tommaso's eyes locked on hers. Intense, almost pleading. "The machine that brought you here, it's not random. Someone built it, wove it into time. I've seen glimpses a woman, a city of glass, a golden thread binding it all. Find her, and you'll know why you're here." A shout echoed from the alley. Vittoria's men, closing in. Emma's heart pounded, but she made her choice. She climbed into the boat, her sketchpad clutched tight, the keys still in her pocket. "Come with me," she said, her voice soft but urgent. "You know more than you're saying." Tommaso's smile was bittersweet. "I can't. My place is here, painting the cracks in time. But I'll find you again." He pushed the boat into the current, his figure shrinking as the Arno carried her away. The last thing she saw was his silhouette, a canvas under his arm, and the flicker of a torch as Vittoria's men reached him. The river was a silver ribbon, guiding Emma toward an unknown horizon. Her fingers traced the key, its edges biting into her skin. The gown, the paintings, the thread, they were pieces of a puzzle she was only beginning to understand. Florence had tested her, shaped her, but it wasn't her end. Somewhere, in a city of glass or a world of stars, answers waited, and she'd find them, one stitch at a time. As the boat drifted into the night, a shadow moved on the Sharia woman, cloaked, her face hidden. She held a golden thread, its end trailing into the water toward Emma. The air shimmered, and a faint hum, like her sewing machine, pulsed in the distance. Emma's breath caught. Was this the woman Tommaso spoke of? The weaver of her fate? The story doesn't end here. Emma's journey is just beginning, and the secrets of time are unraveling faster than she can sew them shut. Want to know what lies beyond the river, who the cloaked woman is, and whether Emma will master the thread or be consumed by it? Follow my channel for the next chapter, where Florence's shadows give way to a world you won't believe. The tapestry is far from finished, and Emma Sinclair's needle is sharper than ever.